to jam before you just truly destroy it.
Was it song or educational? Was it funny?
Yes. At various points, all of the she referenced. But a number of people said that she incorporated one of the main sentences. It wasn't just always. Yes. There was no public.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, there wasn't a she. Well, and you do certain things at anybody except she also
Good, Carmen. So when are you having this knee stuff done? Oh, you're right here done? Yeah. Wow. Okay. Nice.
Did you go to the where'd you go? Okay, so
You got one? You should have lots of airport pins. All right, we ready, guys? Good evening, everyone. Being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Coos Bay City Council meeting to order. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. First item on the agenda is public comments. I think we have a few. I have to read a disclaimer here, so bear with me, please. Citizens wishing to address the City Council during this time set for the public comments are requested to sign this roster. I apologize, you already did that. The public comment period is intended for the public to share ideas and concerns. It is not intended for the interactive discussion with Council. There may be opportunities for the public comments during specific agenda items that require a public hearing. Members of the public are requested to confine their remarks to questions and issues under the discussion during this time. During any designated comment period, individuals shall not engage in personal attacks, shall not impugn the motives of any speaker, and shall at all times, while in session, conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. No person shall make personal, impertinent, slanderous, or unauthorized remarks or become boisterous while addressing the council. First one is Bill. You're up. Davis. What's your last name, Bill? I know you as Bill.
Davis.
Okay. Thank you. Come on up. I apologize.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, I'm here. I'm a pickleball advocate, and we would like to have the city work with us to revitalize the tennis courts up at Mingus Park. Basically, right now they're neglected. They've been forgotten about, and everybody loves pickleball, and we're just asking for your help as to see what we could do about it. And because everybody wants to play, and you can't have enough pickleball courts. And I can't, it would be an asset to the community. It really would. And basically, that's all I got to say. I don't have really.
Okay, well, and we have Heidi that's going to also make a comment about the pickleball courts, and so why don't we have her come up and she can make.
Come on up, Heidi.
Sorry, I just came from pickleball, so sorry, guys. So I was going to tell you guys that, as Bill said, pickleball is getting really deep in the community, as you guys all know. It's a really super popular sport. It's gaining momentum, and I think Brookings just had a tournament where they attracted a bunch of people that came down and played at their. So it attracts tourism. We have people coming in from Texas and Roseburg and all over playing. And as much as we love SWAC has a really great facility. However, there's those two tennis courts up at the top of Mingus, as you guys know. And one side of the tennis courts is just dilapidated, kind of like flooding, and the other side is great for tennis. However, if we were able to take one side, just one side, and transform it into a pickleball court with like 2 or 3 courts, I think.
Or 4, well,
I'm not sure.
whatever
We can get. It'd be great, especially because I'm a high school teacher, and at the middle school level here at Marshfield Middle, they are teaching pickleball in the gym classes, and they're also teaching pickleball in the high school gym classes. And there is a lot of interest from the high school students who want to play. Like, they want to start a club, but there's nowhere to play locally. And I know that you guys know a lot of our high school students don't have licenses and can't travel. So to have a local pickleball court that we could also use for our high school students and our high school clubs and that kind of thing would be a really great asset for the community, especially because I've been to those courts up there and there's never anyone up there. And it'd be so much fun to be able to have a local court for our kids, for our adults, for the community. So that
and
is...
it wouldn't be that big of an investment. All you have to go up there, blow all the leaves, clean it up, paint the courts at first.
So let me ask you this. I mean, for the city of Coos Bay, I think that financially it would be difficult for us to find dollars. You can correct me if I'm wrong here for that. But I don't know how the rest of everyone else feels, but I wouldn't mind, and I don't know why we couldn't allocate those courts to you if you're willing to do a fundraiser and get the courts fixed up and usable for your use. I could support that. I don't know how everyone else feels, but for us financially to be able to invest into it, I think would be difficult. Comments from anyone else?
Well, this has been tossed around in the Parks Commission as well. Jennifer might have a little bit more information. Would you like to speak on it, Jennifer? Or
Well, and certainly looking for any recommendation you may have, but maybe we should start at the Parks Commission with this request.
Yes.
And so the Parks Commission meets the 3rd Thursday
I think so.
of every month, and if I can get your contact information, I can make sure I direct you appropriately. It's at 4 o'clock. It's here in council chambers, and you can come and talk to them about this. They would. I know they'd be open.
Yes.
So they have a Parks Commission meeting on Thursday. So if you could come and talk to them. Usually what happens, you came straight to us, but the Parks Commission is someone that would oversee all these utility areas, and that being one of them, since they had a discussion about it. But if I understand correctly, so I think you just need, if you can get more support, and probably if you're willing to take them over and you can find the dollars yourself to help facilitate this.
Yeah, I believe there was a renovation cost that we were looking at for those specific tennis courts. There was another thing is how the general assets of the community in terms of tennis and all the courts and such. We took some courts away when we expanded the skate park. That wasn't being used for tennis really much at all, and we knew that we had tennis spots up above Mingus. That being said, now that there's only 2, we were just trying to get input from the community as to what the highest and best use would be, and I believe it would be restriping them to be either pickleball or tennis. They could toggle between the 2, and it would be removable.
why not just have both?
Nets, and with different bollards that would slide into place depending on the usage. That would incur a bit more cost. So that was one of the things that the Parks Commission does not have a lot. So if anything in the future comes in front of you that is a fee or something like that supports parks, I would strongly recommend that you help with that or support that. But in the meantime, I think that the finding some funding to help the city with this, with some kind of group leading the charge, might be the best possible way to get success at this.
So that's the first Wednesday in August? Or first Thursday?
The third Thursday of every month is
so
the
this
Parks
Thursday.
Commission. Actually, last week was the Parks Commission meeting, and we didn't have a quorum, which was the first in a very long time, and so we did not have a meeting. But we will have one. The next one is, I believe, August 20th.
Now, if we went up, a volunteer group went up there and cleaned those courts up on their own, would there be a problem there with that?
In terms of just like blowing the leaves off. and
blowing them
stuff.
off and like maybe high pressure washing them. And,
Getting up there and taping them down.
Once they're striped and stuff, I think they're talking about. What they've done in other places, they'll have a box and they'll have the nets in there with a combination, and they have a
Yeah.
leaf blower and stuff, and they can maintain it that way if that's allowed.
that we would, once it was all set up, the group would maintain it and all.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any major problem.
Sounds like a great discussion for the Parks Commission.
Go up there and do what we could, and,
Yeah.
If I can get your contact information, I'll make sure to.
Perfect. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get some pickleball.
I just had a question for Nicole. We don't, because it's property of the city, it wouldn't be exclusive use by one group.
Oh, no.
Or is
No,
it?
not at all.
I
Yeah,
hope
agreed.
not.
It's similar to, I would imagine, this is how I see this, similar to like the group that kind of came together to help support the pool boiler improvements, right? There's this group of people who believe in that, got some funding together, but it's still open to the general public for use.
But like
Yeah.
out there at SWAC, it's open to the public. I mean, it's open to anybody, it's a public course.
Yeah, Simpson
I just-
Park is
I just
also
wanted
open.
to clarify that for the public that may be listening too. So, yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and effort. and we
Good seeing you,
appreciate
Bill. Is there any other public comments in the audience? Even though you haven't signed up, you're more than welcome to come up and make a comment this time. Anyone? Hearing that there's none. I also want to mention that we have Councilor DeNovo virtual, Councilor Stevens DeNovo, and Councilor Niebergall all virtual. And so also I'd like to move number 5D up underneath the consent calendar. Is there any objections to that?
Why would we do that?
Because Councilor DeNovo has a meeting and she'd like to attend that one, and also the presentation by the North Bend Charleston Visitors Convention Bureau.
But you're proposing to move it up under the consent calendar?
After the consent calendar.
Oh, after. Okay, just moving it still as an action item.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not not part of the consent calendar.
There you
Is that agreeable?
I'm fine.
go. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so next item on there is consent calendar. Before we, it doesn't matter. I need a motion and a second for the consent calendar, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to present or to approve the consent calendar as submitted. I'd just like to mention that in this one item, it's to approve a $911,520 grant. Is that correct, Chief Atkins? Can you give us a little detail about it, maybe?
Yes, this is part of the Rural Health Transformation Program that was done in Oregon. It was a little less than $1 billion that was issued this year for all these different grants. And we were approved for, it's called Increasing Cardiac Survivability in Coos County is the project. The idea is to put additional automatic external defibrillators in the community, so to add 30 community defibrillators through the north part of Coos County on down to Bandon, as well as enhanced cardiac monitoring equipment for several of the fire agencies and Bay Cities ambulance. And then some additional devices that help do compressions for someone that's in cardiac arrest.
All right. Thank
Very
you.
cool.
That's great. Any other comments, anyone? Okay, hearing none. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, thanks. I just want to say my team also wrote this grant, and it was complex and difficult, and I just really commend you all for being successful at getting this award and appreciate your dedication to bringing in more money into the city.
Yeah. Second that.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, hearing no other comments, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Okay, next item that we're going to go down to is 5D, consideration to amend the city's fee schedule to establish a vacant and blighted property program fees. Just to remind the council, this came before us, and we made some, we approved the ordinance, which you have in front of you at your diocese, if you want to reference it. The question that came back to us, or we wanted the staff to bring back, is this the fee structure of what needs to be done. So I think we should just call this a review, because I'm sure there'll be interaction about this, and we'll go ahead and discuss it in detail, and maybe give some more direction to the staff how we'd like to go. And Nicole, you can start us off.
Okay, great, thank you. So, as the mayor indicated, we did bring this ordinance before you at your July 2nd council meeting. And just as a reminder, ordinances take 30 days before they are fully enacted. So within that window right now, which is a good time to be discussing the fees that were noted within the ordinance. We generally try to keep our fees within the fee resolution, so it gives us a little bit more nimbleness there without having to modify code to change a fee as appropriate. So the package that was presented in the agenda packet kind of walked through several different elements to kind of land at what might be a good approach for us to implement this program across the city. And it kind of takes a blended fee approach that really is focused on primarily registration, cost recovery, and then in our worst case scenario, some incentive. Now, understanding last time we had a little bit of discussion around what does that incentive look like in order to make sure we're kind of creating a large enough incentive to encourage some of our longer term properties to maybe come into better use. So I think that's where we kind of land, is how do we want to handle that? So I've added a little piece on the dais along with the ordinance that might help us kind of distinguish between the different methodologies that we could select. Again, we're kind of picking that middle ground that's kind of related to registration, administrative cost recovery, and then some incentive-based for longer-term buildings. But there are several other. We talked last time about some valuation related to assessed value. Properties that have a higher assessed value maybe should have a different calculation than ones with a lower. Same kind of idea with some square footage. I think that came up as well. There are, within the packet, there are some, an overview of various organizations, entities within Oregon and how they approach this, and it is all over the board, both in their fee methodology and then how they apply it. There are some that use a property classification, so whether it's residential, commercial, or mixed use, they have some fees based on that. And then the last kind of, which is, there's not a lot of examples, but kind of that risk-based, which is really hopefully putting in meaningful incentives so that it prevents long-term vacancies as much as we can, right? So I would open up for you guys to kind of talk through maybe what you would like. This is presented as a package that you might adopt tonight, but there's also acknowledgement that, that 30-day window is going to bring us into August, so you could come back still in August and be within your 30-day window and establish fees. Doesn't mean the ordinance can be in effect without fees. It just makes it a little bit harder for us to kind of do much with. So,
For a few clarifications.
Yeah.
Number one, I think it states in this ordinance that there has to be a 2-year vacancy before we can enact a fee. Is that correct?
No.
No?
There is no. The fee structure provides for if there is a vacancy greater than 2 years. So
Greater than 2 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have that like an escalation clause essentially. Okay. So if it's been vacant long term, we want to address that a little differently than someone who's in a 30, 60, 90 days. So I believe in the ordinance actually it's a 90-day
Okay.
vacancy before it triggers. Now there could be some other things that might trigger it earlier if there are a lot of police calls there, response calls for fire, neighborhood complaints, those kinds of things. It could trigger differently, but it's generally speaking a 90-day. They have to register within 90 days of vacancy.
But if we know that the building's been vacant for 2 years, we can continue. We don't have to wait. The 2 years doesn't start after we adopt this. It can be considered already 2 years. Is that correct?
We have several that are in that boat, and I think we want, again,
Sure.
right, this can be something you guys decide, but this was built around with this tool in place, so the ordinance is in place, we could then work forward, and a vacancy of 2 years would fall in a different fee.
And the only other thing before, and I'm going to leave it at one other question. So I asked this at the last time. If it's partially vacant, you have a large building that's 40,000 square feet, and you have a partial that's being rented, 500 square feet, that's considered not vacant, or is it vacant, or how is that going to be determined? When the rest of the building is deteriorating.
Yeah, I think that's a question here. So we haven't delineated that in the fee structure. We've just determined vacancy. Now, if we want to do based on square footage, that kind of makes sense, that you'd say this much square footage is not in use, especially in our core commercial areas, right? To make sure that those buildings are fully in use.
But if we don't do the square footage, then how do we determine that?
That's a great question.
Okay.
We might have to have some
All right.
modifications to our code, because we're just vacant
Sure,
and blighted.
I got it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to leave, I'll open it up, council, to questions.
Just for clarification, the miscellaneous fees exhibit A versus what you're showing here,
So
what I'm not understanding.
So this, sure. The handout was just to kind of give some examples of what a flat fee might look like, what assessed value calculation might look like, and what square footage. Just very generalized, assessed value at 20%, square footage at 10%. The piece of the resolution, which is the fee structure, that's what we're recommending based on kind of the cost of implementing the program. So this is just to give you an example of what some other structures might look like.
I'd like to clarify, when we were talking about whether the building is fully vacant or partially used, this ordinance is addressing vacant and blighted property. So if the property is determined blighted, then I don't know that it has to be 100% one way or the other, would be my take on it. So if the property's 90% of it's condemned, but there's one wing that's still being rented, that doesn't prevent that from complying with this ordinance, in my opinion.
As long as we could legally define that, so that it's something that we could actually take action on.
Yeah.
So has our
It makes sense because we have a property right now that we're dealing with where if you walk into the businesses that are operating, it looks fine, but we know that the rest of the building is deteriorating. And it's an issue.
yeah.
So I think we just need to make sure that it's legal.
Yeah.
And it's included in your ordinance what a blighted property definition is. We acknowledged that it would exhibit multiple conditions that impact safety, maintenance, and neighborhood stability, and we listed what some of those might look like. And, understanding the building you're talking about, most, if not all, apply to that one. So that wouldn't be again, this is how we interpret, but it wouldn't be vacant, it would be blighted.
Yeah. So there's basically two tools to use in here, which would address.
And then we also have nuisance code, and there's just a lot of pieces to this. So where we might have some overlap by code sections, those fees will, all be tools.
Section 855030 applicability goes through that pretty clearly, and then below that, 855040 definitions clearly sets out what blighted property is.
Unsecured structures, broken windows, open. Yep.
So I think we're covered.
So then the ordinance has already been adopted, so then you need to decide on the fee schedule. So the fee schedule that is before us is something that can, as I said, I think this is for us to review, and then make sure that we give staff direction on which way we want to go, flat fee or assessed value or square footage. I think we need to give direction on that. So my point was on square footage, but because I was going to determine how the vacancy would be determined. You've clarified that, Troy, so I don't think it matters on which one we address then, or adopt, I guess, or suggest.
I like the hybrid administrative cost recovery. I mean, it's the easiest work for the administration. It gives them flexibility to change and rate that fee based on the seriousness or extent of what we're dealing with. It doesn't impair redevelopment. It appears to be, the fairest across there. They've done a nice comparison matrix up on the top of the.
For the public, can you explain the hybrid? Because that is the staff recommendation.
Yeah, so that essentially, we're trying to bring in a couple things, right? We want to cover the costs of, make sure that we're not pulling from other funds to cover what we're trying to do with essentially a small amount of our properties in the community. So we first want to do a cost recovery, but we also acknowledge we'd like to have some sort of listing of what's vacant. So that's an added piece to this. It's more of a flat fee. It doesn't matter what time and is associated, who's going to touch that. And then we also note that there are several property owners who are kind of non-responsive to how we'd like our city to feel and how we live and experience it daily. So we have that elevation level that isn't necessarily tied to time or a listing of properties. It's you're failing to respond to our encouragements, so it's a little bit higher of a fee there. So we're bringing kind of multiple concepts into one kind of fee structure. There could be some capacity to expand what's proposed if you wanted to look at, a period, like say at a year or at 36 months. I mean, I'm really hopeful something like this program is going to encourage someone to make some changes before 36 months. But and then the other piece that's been kind of added in the last little bit in putting this together is, for the folks who maybe are newly vacant and struggling maybe to come back into compliance, if they're willing to put together an agreement that says we're going to do this in this timeline, maybe we work with them on that. So there's kind of this middle ground that says, hey, sometimes it's tough, right? We hear that. So
I mean, our goal is not to be overburdensome on private property owners. Our goal is to help move forward for neighboring businesses in our community to have a vibrant place that they all want to come down and spend time and be supportive of their businesses. I think it's like, building codes are not to encumber you, but they're to protect you from your neighbors. It doesn't have a stack of junk cars up in the front yard you can't do anything about. And that's kind of what we have here. We have a building or buildings, I'm trying not to make it individual. When you have a structure or a building in our community that meets these requirements, it impairs everyone else around them. It impairs neighboring building owners, neighboring businesses, and community members who want to be down there enjoying it. And if we can't get them to move forward, we need some sort of a stick.
yeah. And the other piece of this is we've had a lot of conversation around commercial buildings, but we recognize that this is also happening in our neighborhoods. And so addressing this from residential properties as well, so we can kind of secure some of those, which we had a program where we wanted those folks to register with us, specifically as those homes went into foreclosure and changed hands to banks who are not involved in community, they're not here. And so this gives us a little bit more teeth with them. There's an expectation while you hold ownership of that property that it's maintained in a safe and secure manner for the surrounding neighbors.
Hey, Nicole.
Yes.
One question. So I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. When we're looking at specifically the vacant and blighted property, I see per occurrence. So if we issue a notice to a business owner that they have to be compliant within so many days, and if that doesn't happen, we can issue this $1,000 charge every day until they come into compliance. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that's actually in the ordinance. If you go to section 8.55.120, it says within there, each day a violation continues after notice may constitute a separate violation. So we, you know, and again, uses the word may, so there is that space that are the folks that are kind of doing this work have the ability to apply that as it seems to make most sense. Boots on the ground often have a better feel for what the mechanism is to get forward momentum.
Sarah?
Yeah, Nicole, I trust you and the city team to make good decisions, but it does feel really subjective. So how are you going to mitigate that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think this subjectivity comes a little bit from the diversity of the properties that we're kind of dealing with, right? We're talking about residential, we're talking about building, maybe industrial. We haven't really had that concern. We're also talking about maybe a residential unit that is newly vacant and a commercial unit that's been long-term vacant. So the subjectivity does give us the ability to deal with those on a case-by-case basis. And I think that's what we need here in order to help the ones who are maybe newly vacant and need to get over that, and those ones who just don't live here and have that investment in our community. We need to be a little stiffer in that. And I think if we have a flat one-size-fits-all, it becomes a little bit more challenging to ebb and flow with the need for each case. So
has Nate looked this over, our city attorney?
He looked over ordinance, yes.
Okay, he looked over the ordinance, and so, but have he talked to him about the subjectivity that Sarah's talking about? Is he all right with that?
We didn't talk to him about, I guess, about the fee structure
Okay.
at this point. Yeah.
All right. I'm just concerned that, we have something in place, and are we going to be subjective, as Sarah said? How are we going to determine that? I mean, I think it could be a problem.
It could be, but we still have guidelines, right? And he reviewed, and not to second guess any of this, but he reviewed the ordinance, which does already have that subjectivity in it with may, right? It's not shall. And there wasn't necessarily any negative feedback about how we might apply that. So,
Okay.
But happy to, for sure.
And I agree, I understand where subjectivity could be a problem. It's like, well, I don't like Billy, so I'm going to just fee him the heck. But I really like, Tommy, so I'm not going to. That being said, I do think that we need to give the staff some elbow room and work room so that they can work with the building owners and property owners. And if they're working in good faith and moving steps forward, that gives them the freedom to be able to support that and help move it, not just be strictly fee-based or penalty-based. So, I mean, subjectivity is a reality, but I think we have to give the staff the flexibility to work with those property owners.
And I'm not concerned about that. I think the staff should have the flexibility. I'm just concerned about Billy coming back and saying, well, you didn't treat me the same way that you treated your son.
Yeah, so in fairness,
That's because, Billy, you didn't do any work to move the project
Yeah.
forward. You didn't, work to resolve the issue that we initiated with you. And I think clear documentation of interaction
that's what I was going to say.
with the building owners
We're not
make that clear.
talking
Right.
really about this just like one-off. We've moved this program into and underneath our police chief. And if any of you have had any understanding of the amount of documentation they do, we put this in the right place for building a case, right? That's what we're really going to have to do, because we need to be prepared. Should this go the longest route possible, which is a legal route, we need to have all of our ducks in a row there. And we're doing that from initial contact all the way through how we're working that. We've done that in the past, don't get me wrong, right? We're keeping those documents. That's how we end up at the hearings official, right? With a good packet of information that person can make a determination. We just upped the ante when we moved it into the police department, because that's just kind of part of what they do.
And they love more paperwork when they can get it.
Well, I like the idea of having a little bit more flexibility for staff to respond to individual cases. I'm wondering, though, if there might be a way to divide this in between zones in terms of an urban renewal zone schedule and then a non-urban renewal zone schedule. That being, I want to just kind of explore this a little bit, but basically we have offered people in the urban renewal zone plenty of carrots to do things, and we are willing to help. And so we're not talking about how much we are willing to do to support building owners with this fee schedule discussion. But the fact that we have that there and we are willing to help, to me, says we don't need to be lenient if they're not utilizing it and if they're not doing anything. So if you are in the urban renewal area, which is our focal point for commercial development, if you're not doing it, I think it needs to be strict. Like, I personally am just like kind of done with this. We can just move into Coos Bay and buy a building and then just let it sit and decay, and we just pay the general county taxes every year. And I'll just sit there and just let it just dissolve into a pile of rubble, and then the city will have to deal with it eventually, and then all of our community has to pay for all of this neglect. I don't know. If we can be strong enough with these fees in our commercial areas, which is the main part of where I want to focus on, I'd be fine with this. And that $1,000 per occurrence is one thing. Is it per day? Maybe, I don't know. But like in this fee schedule, if you have a 55,000 square foot industrial warehouse, if we just based it off assessed value, 2%, it'd be $9,000, what, a year as a fee? For an assessed value of $4.5 million,
So
that's nothing.
That's the same, it would be the same kind of idea based, remember, we have to go back to the code, and the code says per occurrence, per
Yes.
violation. So just as we would be treating that 500 as a per occurrence, same. There could be that same
Like
per violation, per, yes,
9,000
each.
per occurrence.
If that's the route we wanted to go.
All I'm saying is I think we've been way too lenient for too long, and that's why we have so many blighted properties that are basically becoming our problem, the community's problem. It's no longer one individual property developer's problem, it's our community's problem, and it is affecting all of the neighbors who are trying their best to build a sustainable and healthy, vibrant business or downtown, when we're struggling with decay that's right in the center of everything. I'm done. I'm done. So
Okay, then.
I agree with Carmen
You make the point.
100% that we need to. I love the urban renewal area versus non-urban renewal. The opportunity cost or the missed opportunity cost, because we're dealing with these buildings. We've been far too polite for too long, and I think a separate fee structure within the urban renewal agencies makes a whole bunch of sense.
I would disagree, only because how do you deal with it when that fund runs out? It's not, it's not an unlimited piece of the pie.
I think it would be really amazing if it was competitive. At this point, it's not. It's barely being
What do you mean?
utilized.
I guess I
It's
don't-
barely being utilized.
The agency's not, the dollars are there, but
The
they're not
dollars are
being
there, and
utilized.
people aren't breaking down the doors to utilize them. It just blows my mind.
Well, there could be a variety of reasons for that, and some people just don't want the string attached to a government thing.
Yeah,
I
to
don't
a
know.
grant?
I
Basically
understand.
free money.
So
I
here's
mean,
it.
I know.
So the
I
pu-
know.
So the public
I'm the
understands.
urban renewal chair.
Okay, so the public understands. There was an opportunity for a business that was given a Main Street grant of, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands.
They weren't given.
They could have gotten a Main Street grant, and they could have gotten a renewal grant, and those two totals would have been $1 million. And this facility said no. And this facility is deteriorating. So that's one of the things in our CRA, and that's one of the reasons that we are even addressing this type of thing. It's not because we want to, it's because we don't know what else to do to try to improve our downtown urban renewal districts or in the Empire, because this has happened multiple times. So, with that being said, the parking lot on 3rd Street is a perfect example. I know I've referenced this before, and if you've been in this Chambers, listening to me, I know it's just saying the same thing over, but that cost the city $500,000 because the property went to Mexico. We had to purchase it, we had to tear it down, and then it cost us another $1.2 million or $3 million to put the parking lot in. And as Carmen said, we have enough parking lots. Do we need to create more parking lots and tear down more buildings? And I happen to agree with him. So that's the dilemma that we're dealing with. So anyway, I stop.
Oh, you're good. I agree 100%. Whatever we do, I like the administrative hybrid.
Right.
But I do agree, and I'm with Carmen and Lucinda, that I'm up to here with it. So the fees need to be, if we move, they need to be hard and they need to be important. Because I was looking at it too. I was like, if I own a $4.5 million and you charge me $9,000, I'd say whatever, and I wouldn't change anything, right? Any of that. But if you charge me $9,000 a day or every month, maybe even every month, it depends. But if that was significant enough, I'm going to have to do something, either sell the building or fix it. But I'm not just going to sit there and pay you $9,000 a month every 2 weeks. So it needs to be hard. But I don't want to separate the URA and the rest of the city, because this street counts and this street doesn't count. It just needs to be, we don't want blighted buildings in our community, downtown or otherwise. And if you violate our ordinance and you're not going to work with us to move it forward, then we're going to hit you and hit you hard. And it's not for them, and it's not for being overbearing government. It is, as we've all alluded to, is to protect the neighboring property owners, the neighboring businesses, and the community at large who wants to be down there and enjoying it and can't or won't because it's blighted.
Jacob, you've had your hand up. I apologize.
No, that's A-okay. It's perks of being online, I guess. I'm curious, Ms. Rutherford, is there anything legally preventing us from adding in that qualification to properties in the URA?
I didn't discuss that with Nate in developing the ordinance, so I can't, and I didn't go to school to be an attorney, didn't play one on TV, so my best guess, knowing that there are there's at least one entity that does this entirely within their urban renewal. They don't worry about it anywhere else because they're wanting to encourage that development in a different way. So given that exists, there is that possibility. Now theirs only is that and not an outside difference, but it doesn't, it does have a little bit of credence there that this is where we focus our efforts, the strongest efforts too.
Yeah, I think for me, the reason why I would want to separate it is because the residential areas we're dealing with people's homes, and there's people who are in a home and they're on a fixed income, and there's just not a lot of resources. And we don't have a program like the URA where people can be like, hey, I need to fix my roof. Can you help me? We don't have that for the people outside the Urban Renewal Agency. And it's not like it's a commercial endeavor to own this home. And so that's where I'm like, this is a little bit different. This is someone's livelihood. Whereas in the Urban Renewal District, we're talking about commercial properties, usually buying them for, some kind of fiscal benefit of some sort. They're doing business. And so there is an expectation that when you invest into this area, you're going to keep it at a certain level. And I guess that's where I'm at with the urban renewal area, having its own separate set of rules. Like, this is the level. Everywhere else, your home, we have some kind of, teeth to maybe address people who have bought a house and then just let it decay and don't live in this area. That makes sense to me because there's neighbors around that are like, hey, we're trying really hard and this home is becoming a nuisance and we want something to happen. But I think it's, for me, purely it's the fact that we do have an opportunity. We've given opportunities to people to fix properties in the Urban Renewal Agency area, and if they're choosing not to, then it's time to start cracking.
So aren't there commercial buildings outside the URA?
There are, but I mean, this is like, I think it's because we have that program.
I get you, yeah. But it's not, you answered my question. There are commercial buildings outside the URA.
Yeah, and a great example of kind of that challenge then is like, as you go down, for example, 2nd Street, one side of the street is in the urban renewal area and the other side is not. Mm-hmm. And there is that feels like there's a little bit of inequity in how we treat those neighbors.
Yeah, it is tough because, I mean, one gets to pull from this big pile of funding.
Yeah.
And the other one doesn't, and they're within a stone's throw of each other. It's not very fair.
I think that's where when we allow the flexibility of the staff to address that, we can remedy that difference. And they can see that this is inside the urban renewal. You've been given opportunities for funding, and you're not taking them, and you're not following with our ordinance. We're hitting you, and you're hitting you hard. And then outside of that, they have the flexibility to say, it's a home, times are tight, or whatever.
Yeah,
I think leaving the flexibility allows them to make that adjustment on the fly.
Yeah. I think, I want to protect residencies for, the ability to, I mean, this is tough times economically, and I don't want to throw extra burden on homes that are fixed income. That being said, I do think that there is a level of upkeep that we should focus on for health and public safety. So I like the fee recovery property stabilization program. That sounds good to me, as long as we have a big enough hammer for the URA.
Wait a minute, Sarah, your hand's up. Let me get Sarah first.
2 questions. To clarify, this ordinance is, Nicole, it's for any property or just commercial property?
It is for any property.
Okay. I think that's a really important distinction, because I'm not sure that was clear in the beginning. Second, it sounds like there's some more comments, but I agree that I don't think this is a big enough stick, and I would like to see these fees doubled from the proposal.
Stephanie. Nothing? All right, so
Clear as mud.
Yeah, it really is.
Can I jump in for just a sec? I would love to hear from our city attorney if there's any legal ramifications for changing the fees, like not allowing certain things in the URA, or having the stick be a little heavier in the URA.
Well, the way I see this being presented by staff, and what I'm hearing is, if we did anything, because there's some flexibility, as Troy has mentioned, for staff to implement fees depending on the situation, nuisances, and whatever else. I guess we could put in there, if you wanted to, URA should have a higher weight in decision and fines or something. I don't know, and make it arbitrary and not specific enough. I don't know. Because $1,000 a day seems pretty impactful to me. So that, and that doesn't matter if it's urban renewal or not. That's a possibility. Am I correct?
Yes, agreed.
So the scenario that when I met with Nicole and go over the agenda, just to clarify. So if there's a building that they find that's not up to that's been vacant and they want to assess a fee, they assign them, tell them that they are in violation. Then the clock ticks. They start being fined, whatever that may be determined by staff, and then they would have to apply for a permit, and that still doesn't stop the clock. And then during that, there's an analysis done on time frame and what they need to accomplish. That clock still ticks, and then it ticks until they get done. So to go through this process on some of these buildings could take months. So we're talking $30,000 a month if you do $1,000 fine times 2 or 3. And so that's pretty significant, in my opinion. I don't care how much the building is worth. That's a lot.
Yeah, I don't think that $1,000 a day was the baseline fee.
No, but that's what can be assessed.
Especially when we're talking about the buildings that have had long-term vacancy,
Yes.
right? We've got that $1,000 for vacancy beyond 24 months. So, and again, we'd go back to code and it says each day, violation. So, and as a reminder, like this ordinance kind of runs connected with our existing nuisance, dangerous building, and some standard building ordinances. So there is a possibility that some of those other pieces would help boost or address this concern that we're hitting those ones that really need some encouragement, a little bit stronger encouragement, hitting them a little bit heavier. So
I think if Nate is comfortable with this.
Well,
our
Nate
city
went ahead
attorney.
with the ordinance, and I guess, does the fee schedule need to be approved by Nate, or how we?
We can certainly run it past him for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, if it's may result in a daily penalty, yes, $1,000 a day is significant.
So I guess so the concern by some is the flexibility, or,
Yeah.
to determine may or may not, how do we fall into that category? Is that in the fee schedule, or is it in the ordinance?
The ordinance says
So
may.
he already approved the ordinance.
Yes, okay.
So it's just the fee schedule we can look at.
I mean, if he feels like it's defendable, then that's,
Well, the ordinance he already does think is defendable, so it's the fee schedule that you want to have reviewed by Nate then, everyone? Okay.
well,
I don't know that's necessary. The ordinance is where the law is. The fee schedule is how we're administering it.
yeah, agreed. I think the Councilor Niebergall was talking about, is there a way to make it more focused in the URA? And that is a question I have as well for Nate.
Yeah, to not make it a may for the URA. What's the legality around removing the option
Or
for the URA?
Or at least saying, properties within the URA boundary are more likely subject to maximum penalties or some kind of, I don't know, legalese.
The only thing is I totally understand where we're at. Oh, Nicole, Lucinda, go ahead. You're first. You had your hand up.
I agree with Jacob. Again, a second set of eyes. We said that, we want to be thoughtful about this and want to make sure that when it does get rolled out that we get it right. So I think it should be reviewed by Nate. I still believe Councilor Stevens said double, and I'm in that place too. And perhaps it's because of our length of service on this council and the work that we've tried to accomplish with some of these business owners, and it hasn't moved the needle at all. And so I want to make sure we have a big enough stick. So I propose that we double what we see in this structure currently.
Doubling the daily potential, the $1,000
Yes.
a day.
Doubling it.
To 2,000?
Yes.
So that's a potential for almost $700,000 a year if they don't do
Yes.
anything. All right. Well, I mean,
But
it'll
that's
definitely get their
potential.
attention.
That's a possibility. That's a potential, though.
Okay.
That's still going to be up to staff to have some
it
flexibility.
would be one of those things that would be, if you have a $5 million property, it would catch your eye. But right now, the $9,000, like, oh, what? I don't.
Okay,
And-
so if I understand, I mean, I think having Nate look at it, I have no issues with that. I think to make sure that legally we were following the right criteria makes sense. But I don't about any, I mean, if it's a new RA, there's no may, because we do have some small businesses that might have difficulty in occupying a facility or putting something in that maybe the building looks good and it's not a nuisance and there's a lot of things to it. So I think there needs to be maybe not the heavy-handedness that we would want to see and something that's been neglected. Just that's my point. The other thing I want to know, does staff have the capacity to handle this? I mean, we're talking a lot here because this could be on a daily basis, going around checking multiple buildings and facilities and housing and all this stuff. I mean, I could see easily 20 or 30, 40 issues going on. So how's that get done?
Yeah, so we had some conversations about this. It's been a little bit in the department head meeting. Of course, we recognize we have a dynamic and really energetic compliance officer right now who's just out on the streets regularly pulling in. She's got a caseload that's pretty extensive already. There will be some point that she's going to be she's going to have to figure out highest and best use of her time. So certainly that's going to be an issue. We'll have to see what these fees actually result in. Does that mean there is capacity to, add someone else? But right now, she's working fairly full-time on what we have.
Okay, right. So this is going to
This is going to add to it for
Right.
sure. But I think, she reviewed all of this and she's looking forward to some tools to move the needle on some of these properties.
Yeah, I
as
would
well.
hate to see our chief out there having to do this, right? I'm kidding. Okay, anyway.
Give me a notebook. I'll go out there and
Yeah.
slap some.
I was thinking, I'll do it. So, for me to summarize, I think the council all agrees that we want to do something. And I think it's pretty clear we all want it to be pretty stiff, because we want to see, we have tried in the past to get the needle to move, being encouraging, it's not working. So I think there's clear initiative to make the penalty stiff, to get some attention and make some movement. I do agree that it will be an increased workload, but if it does what we want it to do, that will be a short duration workload until things start getting fixed, and then at some point we'll have the reputation, and people know if they're going to buy a building down here, they have to take care of it and have to keep it up, and it will be more of a maintenance program. But either way, it's going to be a high workload to begin with, because we have preponderance of buildings that need to be addressed.
Right. Yep, just let it get bad.
And might I add to that point that you just made, that urban renewal becomes a positive tool for our compliance officer and staff to work with, instead of saying, you are here, you're not using it, which is more negative. To me, you know, we've got the negative. We get their attention. I just don't see the necessity of putting it, you're in urban renewal and you're not, because it becomes a positive tool to make a difference. And again, I will state, that is not an unlimited fund.
No, it's not,
No.
but it could also be utilized. I mean, and there's many ways. They could, also staff can say, hey, this is available to you, and I think that's a possibility. All right, you have clear direction, yeah, yeah.
Mayor Benetti, Sarah still has a comment. Councilor Stevens.
Thank you,
Sorry.
President DeNovo. I agree with you, Councilor Cribbins, and you, Councilor Kilmer. And I think it's okay for us to say that we are a city that is laser focused on economic development. And this sends that clear message. And I don't think we should be afraid of that. This council has been trailblazers in the past. And I think that we need to be bold and we need to be confident here, and we need to send the right message, and that is that there is a stick, but there's also lots of carrots, and we're here to support you. And I have a lot of confidence in our city staff to navigate this well.
All right. I know we might be adventurous in how we do things, but I just want to mention that there's 12 cities and counties that are also doing some type of vacant property program. So we're not like the only one, and I know some others are looking at it because we're all running the same problem. So anyway, so Nicole, we'll look forward to having this back and reviewing it again, and maybe come to a consensus, and then we can pass the resolution. Anyone else? All right. Thank you so much. Good discussion. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is semi-annual presentation by the Coos Bay North Bend Charleston Visitor and Convention Bureau. Janice, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Oh, I'm on. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Benetti, City Council members, the City Council that are up on the board up there. Thank you all for allowing me to come and give our semi-annual report. You guys have a really long agenda tonight, so I'm going to try and rush through this a little bit fast. Let's see if I can get it go. Okay. Whoops. Skipped one. So just a reminder of who we are. We are the destination marketing organization for Coos Bay, North Bend, Charleston. We brand our destination as Oregon's Adventure Coast. We do all the advertising, marketing, travel, trade relations, state advocacy, and regional participation for Coos Bay, North Bend, and Charleston. We also handle some visitor services, which includes our visitor information centers, not only the one that we contract with the city to manage, but the other two in North Bend and Charleston to help them as we can. And we work with a lot of our local providers to make sure that they are providing what they say they do. And our funding, of course, comes from the local lodging taxes that are collected in the city of Coos Bay, the city of North Bend by the Coquel Indian Tribe, and in Coos County for an area right around Charleston. So I just gave you a really quick look at our fiscal 26 actuals to date. Just a reminder that we do not have any of our fourth quarter TLT in the bank yet. We will have North Bend and the Coquel Tribe sometime in August, but we won't have the city and the county until October. So we will not be closing our fiscal 26 until we get to audit. We'll be close, but there's still some outstanding expenses as well. What we are looking at in fiscal year 27 is a slightly smaller budget. We had a $1.63 million budget this year. We have brought that down to $1.5 million for this coming fiscal year. We're trying to be a little bit more conservative in our budgeting due to a little bit of a downturn in the tourism industry as a whole because of the economy and, of course, the gas prices. Reminder of how our tax is split. As you guys know, you're putting an ordinance or a ballot measure to discuss the city's charter. And I just wanted to remind everybody that we have a blended rate of tax for our hotel properties and our lodging properties. It began with 7% way back in the 70s. It started at 5%, and then it was increased in the 90s, I believe. And in 2019, we increased it again to 9.5%. The 2.5% is subject to state law. And that began when we changed this or added this tax. It was a 70-30 split, which means that of the original tax, it was opposite. The city keeps 72% of the original 7, and the VCB received 28. Of the new 2.5, we receive 70 and the city keeps 30. That still means as a blended rate, the city keeps 61%. Now, part of that 61% does come to the VCB as part of our contract to run the Visitor Information Center. But from all of our other funding partners for the VCB section only, as well as the city of Coos Bay, we get 39%. Visitor spending in 2025 was very strong. At the county level, visitors spent $253.8 million. When I started in 2017, that was about $277 million. It went way down during the pandemic. We lost about $100 million in visitor spending, but it has shot right back up again in these last 4 years. So that was a 5.6% increase. For Coos Bay, North Bend, and Charleston, and I'm sorry my fonts didn't come across very well, but we, in our 3 communities, we generate 44% of that county total at $154.6 million. These visitor spending dollars also generate $16.8 million in state and local taxes at the county level, and for Coos Bay, North Bend, and Charleston, we generate half of the county's total of state and local taxes. Some time ago, I explained how we do our return on investment calculation, and we have changed this up a little bit this year, so I wanted to remind everybody how we came to our number. We use a University of Massachusetts calculation. We did a lot of research when we were looking at how to calculate ROI without spending an enormous amount of money doing visitor surveys, which is the only true way you can decide or get the data of how much our advertising influenced somebody's visit to our area. So the University of Massachusetts did their own exhaustive research and said, on average, about a little less than 15% of what a visitor spending in a destination could be said to have been influenced by a DMO in what we do: advertising, marketing, trade shows, all of it. So we use this calculation. Some destinations use a much higher number, some use a lower number. We thought this was fairly conservative. So to figure ROI, you take the visitor spend, you multiply it by that percentage, that 14.7, you minus what we spent, and you divide it by what we spent, and that's how you get ROI. So if you look at $154.6 million times 14.7, you get $22.7 million. We upped the amount that we are using as our calculation of what we spend. It was determined by my board that we needed to include some of the things that I had left out in the past, some administrative costs and things like that. So we're now using a slightly larger number of what we spend to bring people here, and that is about $1.3 million. So when you do the calculation, our return on investment is still really healthy at $17 to 1. So for every dollar we spend, $17 is brought back into this community in the form of visitor spending and taxes.
Janice, just a question. Does that take into account any other DMOs spending money in the area? For example, Travel Southern Oregon Coast or anything?
Not really. No, it's strictly what we have spent to bring that visitor here. So we do know that travel has been down. It's been down all over. It's not just here. So in the winter, we put together this local vacation loot promotion, which was if you reserved a hotel or a lodging property for a 2-night stay, you got $120 worth of coupons to spend at going charter fishing, going out in the dunes, going to restaurants, that kind of thing. And while we didn't have the conversion that we would have liked to have seen, we still had 34 completed reservations. We had 40 that were booked, and then 6 got canceled because they couldn't go out with the charters because the weather was bad in February and March, which was something we hadn't encountered or thought about when we put this together. But we still had visitors from Eugene, Medford, and Portland, which are our normal markets, but we also had Idaho and California take advantage of the program. And the page that we created for this promotion got 19,500 hits. That's the most for any single page other than our home page that we had ever seen. So interest was really high. It was just timing that was probably bad. So right now we're doing the $75 fuel freebie promotion, which is with a 2-night or longer stay at one of our participating hotels, you get a $75 gift card that you can use to offset the cost of gas, which went down for a little while and is going back up again. So far, we have 66 Visa cards and stays committed, and so that leaves us, we bought about 100 cards. So we still have about 34 that we can deliver. They have to book by the end of this month, but they can stay anyway, anytime between now and Bay Area Fun Festival, so September 20th. Again, this page has also gotten almost 19,500 page views in just 2 months, and we've had 100,000 ad impressions. So again, it's very enticing. It's just that it's still expensive to come on a vacation for anybody. We've heard from some folks who are like, we would love to, the card is great, but we can't afford the hotel room anyway. So there is still some of that happening. Just a quick, yes, ma'am. Sorry, Lucinda.
Sorry to interrupt. I did have a question. So when you're talking about 19,000 views, this promotion was structured in a way really to promote the entire region. So if I remember correctly, we're promoting fishing, we're promoting outdoor recreation, and so we're still getting a lot of exposure to,
that's correct.
Not only this promotion, but to the entire region. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So we are promoting all of our outdoor rec, all of our indoor adventures as well. So we talk about the museums and the not only the art museum, the history museum, but the Marine Life Center. We're talking about bowling. We're talking about some of the other things, gaming. So things that people can do when they're here, which we know in advertising, it takes 6 to 10 advertising impressions before anyone decides to make a move, not even a booking, but just a move to learn more. And so people who are visiting now, who aren't taking part of this promotion, probably made their plans 2 years ago. We're going to go to Coos Bay. Oh, we can't go this summer. Oh, we can't go next summer. Oh, let's go in 26. So these people have seen our ads and seen our ads and seen our ads for several years because we don't stop. We advertise year-round. We used to only advertise in the off-season, but now we advertise year-round. There's always something on. In fact, we had our ad agency here last week for our VCB board meeting, and that is how we talk about it. We are always on. Somewhere we are advertising something somewhere. I will call the council's attention to the video link. I'm not going to play it tonight because we're kind of rushed for time, but it's a cute video we did for this promotion with our visitor services coordinator for TikTok. It's really cute. So I looked at our social media stats for FY26. So this is all of July through June of last year and the beginning of this year. And we had some pretty impressive statistics here. We had 9 million impressions on our Facebook posts with 717,000 engagements. Our Instagram is still kind of growing. We go up and down with it, but we still had 500,000 impressions with 137,000 engagements. TikTok is where we are starting to put a lot more emphasis and a lot more attention. A lot more videos are being posted, and we still had 302,000 video views on that when we weren't even doing a lot. And YouTube is very interesting. We actually advertise on YouTube. And our videos are 30 seconds to 2 minutes long. That's probably the longest video we have. And we had 4,300 hours of our stuff watched. So that's pretty impressive. And then I'll close with the visitor center. I always like to give you guys some information about the statistics. I don't know if everybody's aware, but our visitor services manager decided to leave us in June. We're very sad about that because she was awesome, but she had another opportunity and decided to move on. So next week, we will be interviewing some candidates for that position and hoping to fill that really soon. But from January to June, we still had a pretty impressive 6 months in the visitor center. We had more than 8,500 visitors come through our door. Our volunteers, we have about 20, 21, it kind of fluctuates. So we're always looking for volunteers. I say this every time. We love volunteers. They gave us 1,580 hours in those 6 months. We mail out our visitor guide through not only our own website where people ask us to send information, but through Travel Oregon. And we sent 6,600 visitor guides in 6 months. That's averaging about 1,100 a month. So that's really pretty good. And we also do a lot of merchandise sales at the visitor center. So we had about $10,000 worth of sales so far this year. So that's my report. Hopefully I wasn't too long.
No, you were too long. I'm always an advocate of tourism and how far you've done and what you've done and accomplished and help our economic interest in the community. Questions from anyone? Comments? Lucinda, anyone?
Yeah, Janice, I think didn't mention that the state in total was, I think, Janice, correct me if I'm wrong, up about 1% for the year. So the fact that our region is up 5%, and then Coos Bay, North Bend, Charleston is up 4%. I mean, that's really great work that Janice and her team are doing.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm a firm believer that tourism is part of our economic development. So as we were talking about all the things that the city is trying to do, including tourism as that economic development engine is also pretty important. So thank you.
Definitely, absolutely. So.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank
you,
you.
Janice.
All that you're doing for our
Yeah.
area.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the Community Development Department Annual Report. Chelsea, good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
How are you?
See if I can share my screen. Christine makes it available. While we're waiting, as council's aware, community development, the department hasn't, is just kind of recently a stand-alone department. See if it gets it going. It's taking just a little slow. Okay, there we go. Before 2024, this department was together with the Public Works Department, and so we've had past 2 years of kind of learning and growing. Together, the Community Development Department consists of the building and planning divisions. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to just report out, kind of give you some highlights of what's happened the last year, some data, some trends, just keep you informed. So I talk about staffing and some policy. We've, not just the department, but the city has really been focusing on changing our mindsets to how do we help projects get to yes? And so shifting from a regulatory mindset to more of a customer service first approach. We in the department have had some changes with staffing. We are currently operating with a little less staff than normal. As we mentioned tonight, code enforcement once was under building, it's now under PD. That's a great change, just overall. But we spent a year or two really struggling with staffing. And so happy to say, as of June this year, we filled all of our vacancies and we are operating, at pretty good levels. I wanted to note that we did work through the SOA WEX program to bring on a temp position. We have Ariel who's helping us at the front counters. That's made a big difference.
I wanted to touch on some new ways of doing things that we in the office are doing. There's a regional effort, Urban Forum. I think we've talked about this at council. There's a map that is out there available for use, trying to help make it easier for developers, property owners to see properties and like what they could do with those. So we've implemented that. There's also a tool on the website. It's kind of referred to as a permit finder pro. It's an inquiry tool where a customer could come, or a citizen, go online and say, I want to build a shed. And so it'll take them through a series of questions to an outcome that says, for whatever you want to do, these are the applications, the forms that you need. We are working with Coos County and City of North Bend on transitioning our permitting system to a new system called Cloud Permit. So we're working regionally together to try to make improvements there. And then we've been working with HUD through a Distressed Communities Technical Assistance, their program, to help create some standard operating procedures for our permits processes, to help streamline those, come up with FAQs for the public. And so it's really been a benefit to staff. We've had a lot of change in staff, so helping them understand, and then also the public. And I just want to highlight Leah, the program manager, happens to be here tonight from the Portland's office. So reiterating our many thanks to the help that you've given the city. And then I wanted to touch on last year, council had some key policy actions that involved community development. We worked through leading that self-storage moratorium. After a moratorium was in place, community development took the lead to help get council set with some permanent adopted restrictions. So we did that. We're also working on the urban growth boundary expansion. Continued efforts, the state just approved the work program, and so we'll be continuing that work throughout the rest of the year. And then last year was when council adopted an updated economic opportunities analysis and also adopted a development strategic plan, really emphasizing our desire to be the region's economic service center. So I want to give you some numbers from last year. Community development is where if you would like to get a building permit, a land use permit, public works permit, or a business license, you come to our counter. So last year we processed 142 planning permits, 336 building permits, and 157 public works permits. And the total fees that we took in for that work was $335,731. Just looking at multi-year trends for planning permits since 2020, some key insights you can see in 2023, we really peaked at a high of 276 permits. That we think was driven by a surge in accessory structure and other what we call general reviews. They're like the lower level review permits. And then you can see that it started to trend back downwards to more of an average 140, 50 permits per year. And that's reflective of some of the process changes we've been trying to implement, and that we're trying to streamline our processes. And an example would be, instead of requiring for a garage that one gets a building permit and an accessory structure planning permit, we now just review the planning review is done with the building permit. So you get your building permit, and we've combined those reviews to try to make it easier. I wanted to note that our fee collection, it's declining. It was high in 2020 at $60,000 we were taking in, and we're now down to about $16,000 taking in. That's a reflection of back in 2020, we were seeing a lot more higher level reviews, maybe like code amendments or plan amendments that were initiated by outside private parties, so they were paying fees for that. That's not happening so much right now. And then we're also, part of our public-private partnerships, something that we can do is waive our planning fees. So if there's a land use required, a review, sometimes we will waive the fee. That's part of our give to a project. This is just showing you the breakdown of kind of where the permits and the fees, how they lay out there. The majority of our permits are uncategorized, so it's probably like your floodplains or just your other general reviews. We do a lot of pre-application conferences, trying to meet with people before they formally apply to help them understand what we're looking for. Accessory structures, there's fences, decks, we do a lot of that, and then your conditional use permits and property like land divisions. Looking at our building permit multi-year trends, you can see that there was a real consistent volume of permits between 2020 and 2023, averaging about 500 permits annually. Since 2023, since that time, it's kind of dropped to about 300 permits annually. And of course, the fees have dropped in line with that. Building permit fees, a lot of times, they're really driven by the commercial structural permits. That's where the bulk of the money comes in from. So in 2026, to date, I think we could say, and Marcy's here, but building is still trending on the low side. We'd love to see it increase. This is a breakdown. Just again, it shows, about 50% of our total building fees come from those larger commercial structural projects, followed by the residential structural, and then our commercial residential mechanical, and then some other. Public works permits, you can see the volume of those stays pretty consistent over the last 5 years, about 174 permits annually, taken about $30,000 annually for those permits, and the trend there is pretty steady. There's not a lot of variance in that. I just wanted to throw up this slide to show the inspections. Staff, we're not just processing the paperwork, but staff is out in the field looking at projects, making sure they're being built to what was approved, helping people figure out what they need to out on the ground. And so we, in 2020, between building planning and public works, had almost 3,000 inspection hours, inspections throughout the year. We're down on that, but that's reflective of just down on overall permit numbers. We deal with the business licenses, and then we, in the past, managed the special events. That's since been moved to the administration's office, but I just wanted to show that there is a trend with business license applications every year. Since 2020, we've increased. We process more new applications every year. So that just trend shows that people are applying for their licenses. New businesses are coming, big or small. Special events, it's pretty likely that we're processing about 40 applications a year for those. Community engagement. So at the front counter, we deal a lot with the applications, and emails, a lot of emails, but we also get people in person at the front counter with questions, on the phone with questions. So just highlighting the kind of a volume that those staff see. And in 2025, 2026, the numbers aren't real complete because we had staff turnover, and so the counts weren't real great. But you can just see that we're likely seeing, 2,000 people at the counter or communicating via phone on top of everything else every year. And I'd like to highlight that we've worked with our GIS coordinator recently to implement a new system, a new way of tracking this. It used to just be a hand tally, but now we have a cool online dashboard that's helping. And so helping track that. In just the first 2 weeks of July, there was already 100 visits. So a lot happens there at the front counter. And then just briefly touching on, we manage the reserving the Mingus Park Community Building, and those reservations, the bulk of them go, the general public or the Boy Scouts. And then we also deal with the parking permits for the Marshfield District. And so that's just examples of work that's done up there. And so last but not least, I just wanted to put faces to names, highlight the department. Pretty much everybody here is new. Starting on the right side is our building codes administrator, Marcy, and our new codes inspector, Zach. And then over on the left is our planning administrator, Kelly, our planner one, Sydney. And then at the bottom, our leads code planning specialist. On the right is Jennifer. On the left, Elizabeth, our codes planning specialist, and then in the middle is Ariel, our SOA WEX. I guess it was we lucked out getting her to help. So that's the team. Just wanted to give you guys some info, and if ever in the future you want any specific information you'd like to hear about, please feel free to let me know. We are implementing a customer satisfaction survey, giving people the opportunity to give us some feedback, and so we're open to that.
Questions for Chelsea? Anyone?
I just had one when we were looking at the building permits and the breakdown. Has there been any analysis of why that has trended so low?
Marcy, do you want to speak to it as your expert opinion, or?
And is that like across the board in many communities?
Yeah, other than the cost of materials, really, I haven't seen any analysis. Do I need to be a speaker?
Yes.
So I don't have any definitive information at this time. The market is down. Residential building is slowing as well. So.
So, Marcy, is that going to increase with like Timber Cove now coming online and those permits? I mean, they're doing so many. I mean, is there a permit per home, or how's that work?
It is a permit per home.
Okay.
And as we know it, they're still moving forward
Right.
rather excitedly. So
Right.
there is one I viewed yesterday that has most of the interior finishes in. They're doing trim and cabinetry today and tomorrow. So.
Okay.
It'll be ready very quickly.
And then Englewood, we also have happening, correct?
Yes, we have groundbreaking tomorrow for another 30 homes sites there. So they're moving forward with some of their permit applications.
Yeah, and during that one period of time, Chelsea, I know you're still up here, but when there was that big increase in 2020, did that have to do a lot with Coos Bay Village, or?
That would be my understanding, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Jacob, I think you had your hand up first, then we'll go to Sarah.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say I think that was a great presentation, especially seeing the multi-year trends. I really appreciated that. I'm curious, though, there was an uptick in business licenses just consistently over the years, and I'm curious what you attribute that to.
I would think it's getting the word out, right? It's a fairly new program, loss of words, but I think getting the word out, getting businesses to buy in on it. I think our fire inspection program is a piece of that too. They're out there communicating with the businesses. Building is out there. So I think it's just getting the word out, and every year we're doing a little bit better job.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sarah?
Chelsea, I just want to say thank you to your team for giving one of our youth an opportunity to have a work experience, and just make a plug that we do. SOAB has funding for paid work experiences to give job seekers and youth the opportunity to build skills and also support employers. So thanks for highlighting that.
Yeah, no problem, and thank you, because really it made it possible where we didn't have the funding to bring on a full-time person. So it was a really great opportunity.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions for Chelsea? All right. Thanks, Chelsea. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is consideration to approve the after-the-fact emergency contract to remove the sunken vessel Commando. Jennifer.
Thank you. On July 2nd, the fishing vessel Commando sank while moored at the city of Coos Bay Marina. As the vessel settled and broke away from the dock, the stern, or the back of the boat, shifted underneath the floating dock structure. On July 3rd, city staff observed a negative plus 0.7 foot tide in which the dock was resting on the vessel's stern, and it caused the dock to lift upward. This indicated the vessel was directly impacting the structural integrity of the marina. Over the following week, city staff made multiple attempts to work with the vessel owner to resolve the situation. Despite repeated communications, the owner took no meaningful action to remove or stabilize the vessel. Staff reviewed the upcoming tide forecast and identified a series of increasingly lower tides beginning the week of July 11th. Predicted tides ranged from -1 to -2.1 feet, would significantly increase the forces exerted on the dock system if the vessel remained lodged beneath it. Staff was concerned that these tidal conditions could result in substantial structural damage or even catastrophic failure of the dock system. This information and urgency of the situation were communicated to the vessel owner. However, no corrective action was taken. So staff contacted the Port of Coos Bay to determine whether its equipment could assist with the removal effort. Unfortunately, the port's available equipment was not capable of safely handling a vessel of this size. Given the approaching low tides, staff immediately contacted several marine contractors. The primary challenge was locating a contractor with specialized equipment, qualified personnel, and the ability to mobilize on or before July 11th. Billard Marine responded immediately and confirmed it had both the equipment and the personnel necessary to perform the emergency work within the required time frame. Prior to authorizing the work, staff consulted with the Oregon Department of State Lands, which provided the applicable Oregon statutes confirming the city's authority to remove the vessel because it posed an imminent threat to public property. Staff also consulted with city's legal counsel regarding the city's legal authority and potential liability. Based on the applicable statutes and the circumstances, legal counsel advised that the city should take all reasonable measures necessary to protect its property. Staff further consulted with city's insurance provider, which provided similar guidance. So on July 10th, the city executed a time and materials emergency contract with Billard Marine to remove the vessel up beneath the dock and try to refloat it. And then the original plan was to take it over to Billard's facility in Eastside. And we were going to do this in 2 phases. So the first phase was just to remove the imminent threat and then get it safely over to Eastside. The second phase was going to be decommissioning it. So with all of this, we've been working closely with the port. And the port offered that if we could float it and dewater it, and it was still structurally intact, then to have Villager tow it over to their yard. They would remove it, and they're already they are going to be commencing with decommissioning 2 other vessels. And they would include this, our vessel, the Commando. I shouldn't say our, they would include the Commando vessel to reduce costs. So we worked with Villager. Villager's open to that. So, as I said, we mowed Villager July 11th. We've been able to remove the vessel from the dock, but there was a lot of floating debris, lines, cords, cables. It's underwater work. The visibility is very poor. So I believe we're on day 8, and today was a very successful day. We got the vessel far enough removed from the dock, so when we ride it, it's not going to impact the dock. And then they did a lift test with the pillows that are going to float it to the top. So tomorrow, the plan is to float this vessel to the surface and then dewater it. And then the port will be on site to help us out. They're gonna take a look at it, and if all looks well, they're going to authorize it being towed over to Charleston. So for this first phase of work, staff is proposing utilizing resolution number 24-13, which is our procurement rules. Section 11, emergency contracts, authorizes the city to enter into a public contract exceeding $100,000 without competitive bidding when circumstances that cannot reasonably have been anticipated require prompt contracting to preserve public property. Staff believes the circumstances surrounding the Commando fully satisfy the criteria established under the city's emergency procurement revisions. So the city's insurance provider is actively working with staff regarding this incident. Staff anticipates that the insurance will reimburse approximately 1/2 of the emergency removal costs and will assist the city in pursuing cost recovery from the vessel owner. In addition, staff is investigating potential financial assistance through the U.S. Coast Guard and the Oregon Department of State Lands to further offset any costs. So the estimated costs for this first phase of work is now anticipated to be between $250,000 to $300,000. It has gone up since the staff report. Staff recommends funding this work from Fund 45 Capital Fund. So with that, I can answer any questions.
So, first of all, was it a determination of what caused it to sink or whatever? Is there any indication of what's going on or what happened?
Yes, Billard Marine and the divers have provided what they believe their explanation to be, and there was a lot of open cavities, if you will, like fuel tanks and such. And so that was there. It's hard to know what happened with respect to when the owner assumed ownership of the vessel, but the pump, the bilge pump that would normally remove water if water fills in. It's a wooden boat, so that does happen. It has a float system that turns it on when the water gets high. That float system got wrapped around all the loose cables and cords that I was kind of talking about, that they're witnessing underwater. And so it wasn't able to tell that pump to turn on. So it didn't. It filled with water and filled all those cavities with water, and that's why it sunk so quickly.
And so I think, isn't it, if someone moors there, they're supposed to also have insurance, am I correct?
That's correct.
Did they have insurance?
Well, technically, he didn't have a mortgage agreement because we had that boat on Gov Deals. He bought it, and he bought it with the understanding, and it was his commitment to remove the boat within 10 days. And he failed to do that.
So he didn't have insurance?
He did not.
All right. So where do we go from here financially, I guess? I mean, this is a pretty big cost to the city.
Yeah, it's definitely an unexpected expense. It will, prevent us from doing some things that we, would otherwise want to do. Our best, step forward is to continue to work with CIS, and potentially their legal team would want to recoup whatever we can through that, and they have great incentive to do that as well, right? It's a trust, so it's a collective pot of money. We're going to continue down that avenue, right? We don't intend, failures on a private part to impact our ability to serve the public. So that's our first and foremost goal, is to kind of recoup as much. But we will work with, with CIS in order, that's our insurance company, and then Nate as necessary to kind of to do that work. So
CIS, our insurance agent or company handling our insurance for the city, they're going to take care of this, right? I mean, they're going to hopefully.
Well, they'll be a partner in that. So they always do subrogation, right? So
Right.
when there's an insurance claim, they're going to go out and find and do a lot of investigative work to see if there's an alternative partner who should be paying their portion. So they're going to still do that just like they would do with any claim.
So but I think I saw in here, this is kind of come out of one of our funds, and so insurance is not going to pay for these
So
costs?
we'll pay them up front, as we're incurring those and are billed for those, and it will become a part of that claim.
Okay.
And it's looking like, they're going to claim or pay 50% at least of what it costs to get that boat away from the dock system, right? That's what we had under insurance. So we had a policy to, just like we do with all assets, to cover, and the dock is under that policy. So it looks like they're going to cover that. That was a piece that we already had insured. But as they go further with this, it is very possible they'll include other costs in that claim. So I don't think we know just yet what they're fully going to cover.
Okay. Any other questions, council?
Yeah, I'm curious. Do we know how many boats that are currently moored at our docks don't have insurance?
I have that number. It has lowered significantly since we have actually changed our mortgage agreement. I can provide that to Nicole, and then she can send that out. But it is smaller
More than zero.
with those vessel owners.
It's more than zero, yes.
Yes, it's more than
Okay.
zero.
Yeah. So just kind of as a reminder, we had recently brought some fee changes to you in regards to how our docks, try to get our docks being used in the intended use. And that's helped in modifying our mortgage agreements, which then has given us a little bit more ability to make sure people are in compliance with insurance, registration. Those are all kind of elements that we weren't really requiring. So we are now, and we are holding people to that. And it's a struggle with a couple of boats who just, are maybe not there yet. But it's much better than where it was the majority of folks who were either missing registration and or insurance.
Sarah?
I have a
Go
follow-up
ahead,
to that,
Jacob.
if
Sorry.
I can.
Yes.
And this might have been addressed when we did the fee change, but I'm thinking of this in analogous to a car. Can we impound boats that are currently moored? And if so, what's that process?
So those are some conversations we've been having with Nate, because I was landing in the same space, right? We know what to do with vehicles who are parked in the right of way, without appropriate authorization. So there's a little bit difference in how that's handled. There's, a different process there. So working through that as we consider this situation in relation to how we should address the rest of the boats that are there. It's very formal, like, you know, most things we want to make sure we create a case and document all those things, but
Is the
it seems
difference
similar, but it's different.
is the difference because they're on like land versus water, or is it
That's
something to do with
A
size?
piece of it is also because we actually lease that land, you know, from DSL. They're kind of that overarching agency who has kind of, you know, oversight for our waterways. And then there's either just the complication of, you know, liveaboards versus not. And there's just a little, we have that obviously in, you know, recreational vehicles on our public, you know, right-of-ways on our streets and stuff. But an average car is different than an average boat. You might be able to live there. So we're working through that. We see that as an opportunity to improve how we address some of these. But I do think we've made great headway just in modifying the fees down there. So the folks who really are there are folks who are taking care of their boats. They want to have, they understand the importance of, you know, a safe and good group of folks that they're mooring their boats next to, right? They appreciate that kind of, and that will enable us to, you know, maybe over time operate that marina in a little bit different way. So,
Sarah, do you still have a question?
I do. Yes, thank you. Not saying this is the direction we're headed, but Nicole, can you just help us understand what would happen if this council voted no right now?
well, that would be a challenge because I signed an emergency agreement with Billeter, you know, kind of on behalf in advance, knowing that somebody had to do something, right? This is an impact to our waters, if nothing else. The boat had fuels and things on it, so we had to take some sort of action here. We'd likely be in some litigation with Billeter for their rights to recoup the funds that we said we would, you know, be responsible for carrying. But again, not an attorney, so but yes, we've signed an agreement, and this is much how our emergency procurement works, right? We go out and do something because it's emergent, and we come back to you, so we make sure we're letting you have awareness and just kind of backing up that based on our policy that's already been approved through that resolution.
And that could impact future emergency situations.
Yeah, agreed.
I had a question regarding the lines and things that are, I was down there and it looked pretty complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah.
Is it affecting any things, because those lines were near the dock, so it could still be affecting somebody's ability to park a boat or more a boat at that location?
Yeah, I think we actually, and Jennifer, you could speak to this, but we actually tried to get the boats that are kind of near relocated just to make sure we were, you know, being really thoughtful about their boats and their assets. I mean, we're kind of hopeful folks treat it as a construction site, right? And, you know, we don't want folks traipsing through our street projects, our sewer projects, those kind of things. So it's the same thing. Yeah, trying to protect that space.
Which is a good argument for CIS when you're talking about that portion of it still being an issue. So.
Well, another example of negligence falling to the cost of our community, which is difficult, but I will move to approve the after-the-fact emergency contract with Billeter Marine and a time and material basis pursuant to resolution number 24-13, section 11, emergency contracts.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 24-13, section 11, emergency contracts. Is there any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passes. Thank you. Next one, consideration to begin negotiations for transfer ownership of building and permanent art collection to Coos Art Museum. Nicole.
Yes, thank you. So at first I'm going to acknowledge that we have some folks here from the Art Museum who can help if necessary, and possibility to kind of round out this conversation. So we've actually, the city's team and the Art Museum's team, been having this conversation for a little bit of time. Both kind of acknowledging that there's obviously the right person, organization who should be in charge of a museum and an art collection. And generally speaking, that's not a rural city with limited expertise, right? And so we fortunately have a really strong team at the Art Museum right now who are interested in considering what that might look like to become the owner of that building and the permanent art collection. We also understand from their perspective that gives them access to funding that they would not ordinarily have without an asset under their belt. So we're happy that they're interested in taking on that building. The building in itself is kind of a piece of art, if we know that history there. It was built very distinctly in a time period. So again, you know, having someone who can appreciate that and preserve that is really important. So we started conversations just around what would this look like, and looked at different options. You know, is it just the art collection? Is it the building? Talking through insurance, what would that look like if we had one and not the other? And then also had some conversations around what does this operational cost for the city look like annually? How can that organization take that on? Can there be this kind of weaning in of those costs over a period of time so that they get kind of used to picking those up? And so through all of that, they've put together a kind of a letter of intent, a letter of interest, which is what was put in your packet. I think it's a great starting point. It is really close to where we were talking. Very difference would just be potentially in, we had talked about various options around that how do we support them over a number of years till they're kind of on their feet and kind of know what that looks like. Is that 5 years? Is it full amount for the 5 years? Is it a tapering? I think those are things we can easily get to. Worst case is really not a worst case, right? It gets us to the people who should rightfully own. This is perfectly in line where we could land, right? But I think it begs the question, like, is there any, do we want to fine tune cone any of this? So that's what we're asking. This is a city asset. We want to get your approval to kind of have those conversations, and we'll work through legal counsel to make that transition possible if you so agree. And if you had anything you wanted to add, I
So
guess.
did anyone from the museum want to make a comment? I mean, you don't need to if you don't want to. It's totally up to you. I mean,
let me try first. My name is Scott Carpenter. I'm a member of the board. I'm vice president. And I helped in putting that letter of intent together. I think that the key thing that we're looking at here is that when we look at the museum, we see the opportunity to make this a regional museum, not just a city museum, to bring in different kinds of exhibits than we can bring in right now, to do education for both adults and for youth throughout the entire sort of region that we're working in. But to do that and to do it properly, you have to do it in a way that uses money, unfortunately. And one of the key things that we keep running into is the fact that we have a difficult time raising funds when we say we don't own the building, and we don't own the artwork. We really don't. We really don't even have a property interest in the building. We have the right to manage it at this point. So bringing in some decent funding has been difficult and will continue to be difficult, we think. We have talked to professional money raisers. We have done assessments of the building to understand what it's going to cost us to keep the building not only maintained in the future, but to pick up some of that deferred maintenance. So for example, there's about $250,000 in window panes alone that have not been maintained that someone is going to have to take care of in the near future. And by near future, I mean the next few years. So what we want to do is we want to put the building and the relationship with the city in partnership so that we can go out, raise the money, continue the stewardship that we have toward our educational and our exhibiting obligations, and do that in a way that makes sense for everybody. And we think the best way to do that is to sort of move the building and the artwork over to us. We are fortunate enough right now to have significant funding in our operations. But in order to do what we need to do, we're going to need a lot more than that. And we think this is the way to do it. And so to the extent that you have questions about specific areas of the letter of intent, I think we'd be happy to answer it, but that's just the general overview from our perspective.
Any questions? As far as I'm concerned, this is something that we have talked about for years, and I'm glad that we have a board from the museum and a director that wants to have this and take this on, and the collection, because truthfully, it doesn't belong in our hands as far as I'm concerned. It belongs where you need to have it and go out and get the funds that you need to. So I think we just need to ratify this with the attorneys, and you need to negotiate whatever needs to be done. But I think from my discussions with the board members that I've had discussions with, this is pretty close to what we talked about. And I'm not sure what we incur in cost a year annually with this.
You know, on average, that's what we did. We did a look back, and so we're about 50,000 in the costs we cover.
Right, and on top of it, there's deferred costs and maintenance that's been brought up, and so which we're not able to take care of at this time, and so putting it in their hands and letting them deal with it would definitely be the way to go, as far as I'm concerned. So I think I like to see us move forward on it. Other questions from council?
I had a question.
Oh.
This makes complete sense. I just had a question on the permanent collection. That wasn't something that came to the city. It actually went to CAM, correct? Or
well, I've tried to figure out how we got that collection to you, the city. My understanding is that at one point there was a question as to whether the permanent collection was subject to property taxes. And at that point, the museum had absolutely no way to pay even the property tax portion of the bill. So it was moved to the city, and I think that it is properly at this point in the city's name. There have been a couple of contributions to CAM that need to be cleaned up and actually really should be moved over to the city. But the proposal is that we take all of those pieces and move them over to the museum.
Okay, and the reason that I asked that is because, you know, sometimes when people make donations, I don't know how that's curated or what the process is, if there's ever pieces removed. But I think you've been good stewards of that in protecting that permanent collection, so it just makes sense.
Yeah, in fact, that was one of the first major transactional costs that I was aware of as a board member, was we put in a couple of new air conditioning units on top of the space where the permanent collection is housed, to the cost of about $100,000, and that came out of grants and contributions from members. It's an important part of what the city owns. We want to protect it. We are obligated to protect it, and that's what we want to do in the future too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's see, Jacob, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just in effort at transparency, I do want to acknowledge that Lydia Hines, the director of the Coos Art Museum, while we have different last names, she is my wife. And for this one, I'm going to recuse myself from voting.
Okay. Sarah?
It's similar. We just want to acknowledge that my life partner is on the board of directors for the Coos Art Museum. I don't think there's a conflict of interest here, but just wanted to disclose that.
All right. Comments from the council? No? All right. If not, how about a motion? Do we need a motion here? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate the terms of the ownership transfer and work with legal counsel to prepare the appropriate documents for the transfer.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to direct our city manager to begin negotiations to transfer ownership of the building and permanent art collection to the Coos Art Museum. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
It was a long wait, huh?
Yes.
Sorry.
C, discussion regarding community development fees and cost recovery. Chelsea?
Yes, thank you. So let's see if we can share screen again. Here we go. Share. Beginning. Okay. So City of Coos Bay fee and cost recovery analysis. Looking at, this isn't the first time we've had a conversation about fees, but the last time it was discussed, council asked for some more information about what's the actual cost of service. You know, if we're going to look at increasing fees, let's understand what our cost is. So we have since done that. We worked with a group called Reftelis. They helped create a really fancy calculator spreadsheet. You put in all the numbers and it gives you some data. So we did that for community development. And the key findings are that our fees are below comparable cities of our size and also below the current cost of services. We see that the general fund is really subsidizing our business licenses and our development reviews, and that that subsidy, it tends to increase with the complexity, the level of the review. So this is a slide that just shows kind of the overall general cost recovery. There's so much that goes into this, but these are examples. Our public works permits, the fee that we charge right now on average is about $110. The time it takes for staff to process is about $175. So our permit fee today, we're only recouping 63% of the actual cost. Business licenses, the fee of $90 is an average between the $120 for a general and the $60 for other types of business licenses. They both take the same amount of work, and the cost for staff to process those is about $203. So in that case, we're only recovering 44% of the cost. General reviews, we recover about 50%. The type 1 planning land use review, about 45%. Type 2, about 42% of costs. And then a type 3, only 24% of cost. And so, so you understand a type 1 and a type 2 is something where staff is reviewing in-house. Type 2 is just a little more complex than a type 1. A type 3 is a staff review that's going to Planning Commission for an actual decision. So that requires more work. And so you can see, like, for a type 3, we're only charging $560, but it really costs us almost $2,400 to do that work. And this is just to show where communities, like a standard where you should be, is at recovering 75 to 100% of your cost. And so with every single one of those examples, we're below what would be kind of a standard norm threshold of cost recovery. I wanted to give you an example of other communities and their fees relative to our population. So up at the top, Coos Bay, you've got our kind of average fee, and then in brackets what that cost really is compared to some other communities. And you'll see, like, the Dalles and Troutdale, they're not terribly higher. Dallas is higher. Pendleton, you'll see the boxes aren't all filled because it's not like apples to apples. Not every community has exactly the same permits. So just trying to use the best available information. But when you look at North Bend, we know North Bend has a special situation where they can only raise their fees so much, but they're even higher than us in some cases. Florence, a nearby community and much smaller, has really across the board much higher fees, and then Coos County. So just some comparables to be able to see the differences. And so, you know, there's an impact that we have. You know, we get about 150 plus permits of each, you know, planning, business license permits each year. And so if you were to take the cumulative impact, you know, you're talking maybe $150,000 annually in subsidy. And so that just compounds every year. And so looking to council for some direction, some options. One option would be to just maintain the current fee structure. That does support affordability for, property owners, developers. Another option would be to set a flat fee rate at a percentage of 75 or 100% cost recovery. That gives customers, the public, a predictable number, but we might still be under recovering costs. Another option would to make incremental or specific adjustments. So, maybe look at what's the highest cost of permit, or where do we put the most work and effort into something. And you could align your costs with that. Complexity and quantity just would be a little more complex in trying to adjust the fee schedule that way. And then the fourth option would be to adopt a full cost recovery model where you have a base fee that's pretty close to the cost of recovery, and then you add on an hourly rate, if it takes longer. So, of course, that's less predictable to the customer. It takes more staff time to implement, to track, but it's an option. And regardless of what council chooses to do, we do think it would be wise to implement an annual fee increase that's tied to some kind of cost index. And in the staff report agenda packet, you can see kind of the differences between those. But staff really here is just looking for some direction on policy. Do we want to continue with the current rates? Do we want to look at doing something different? If so, what is that? And then whatever council decides, we're prepared to bring a proposal back that's in line with that. So any questions?
Yeah, on these other analysis, there's no comparison on the sewer. So what do we, this?
Yeah, I really just was looking at community development, so public works permits. And so when you say sewer, that does, like our public works permits do include sewer connections, caps, repairs, site development. But, this isn't the whole city comparison of fees. It's just community development, really.
And the business license, it costs us that much to do a business license?
Yeah, really more like $200 per license, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think there needs to be some adjustment, but I'm not sure how the council, which way they want to go here with what's been recommended, or not recommended, suggested. There's some different options.
I'll say the probably unpopular opinion, which is we need to bring this up. I've always thought our fees were pretty low, honestly, and this is in addition to the fact we don't have system development charges. So
SDCs, yeah.
Yeah, SDCs. So we're already leaving money on the table, in my opinion. Other communities do have SDCs, not all communities, but we have chosen to forego those to help boost development. And then we've also undercut our own cost of service here to the point where we're subsidizing it. And we've got to raise it. Here we are talking, we just went through budget. It's tight. We need to find ways to boost this up, unfortunately. So I'm in support of a more full recovery of funds, flat fee with a annual increase. That would be me.
Chelsea, I have a question. Could you give me just kind of a general example of what a type 1, type 2, or type 3 permit might look like, or who it would affect?
Yeah, so a type 1 would be like a lower level planning review, not a lot of discretion, pretty clear and objective standards. And so we do a lot of our housing like single family homes, stuff like that would be a type 1. A type 2 is something that has a little more discretion, a little more impactful. We send out notice to adjacent neighbors. There's more criteria. So maybe like a conditional use permit for a business. And then your type 3s are like your larger scale developments, your Coos Bay Village, Teakwood Plaza, Timber Cove, those types of things.
So the $2,500 roughly for that type 3 is going to be nominal to the cost of the entire project.
Likely when
Typically.
you're comparing those types of projects.
I mean, honestly, even a type 1, if you're getting a residential house permit and you're paying $210 to get that permit, when you're going to spend upwards of $400,000 to build a house nowadays. I mean,
So my
it's
general
generous on the city's behalf.
opinion is I hate to assess fees whenever we can. I mean, I think our community is pretty tapped as it is. That being said, I think Councilor Matthews indicated it. I'm going to sort of rephrase it, not necessarily leaving money on the table, but what we're doing is when we're subsidizing these, we're taking monies away from services that we could or should be providing to the community.
Good reframe.
Because everything we generate is an effort to give back and serve the community.
Absolutely.
And so if you're doing something, you should have some skin in the game to fulfill that. So I would agree with Councilor Matthews. I'd like the sort of the flat rate at 75 to 80%, which is, we're getting most of it back, and maybe still having to subsidize part of it, but it's not as painful.
So you want to provide a service and pay 20%, have the community pay 20% on the fee for that, and the applicant pay 80%. You're saying 80% cost recovery, not 100% cost recovery?
Yeah.
I strongly disagree.
Just curious, how many of these communities have system development charges?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I don't believe North Bend doesn't have SDCs. I know that for sure. But those other ones outside the area, I'm not 100% certain.
Could we get a refresher on system development charges?
It's very complicated.
Yeah, so
To
Just
do it
simple
would
simple terms for a simple man.
Yeah, I
So-
know it'd be very difficult to do, to
So,
be truthful with you.
real quick, for the water board has a system development charge fee schedule, and basically you're buying into the system as a whole. And there is a set system development charge for various meter sizes that would basically be your buy-in to the system. And so for a small residential 5/8 line, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 that you pay the water board to buy into the system. And that's a one-time buy-in system development.
Paying for initial access.
Yes, and that is
Okay.
that does not include like you actually like doing all of the hooking up and all those various things. I think that gets you the meter, so it gets you water to your land, but then there's you've still got a lot more to go from there. So that's a significant cost. That is significantly more than the cost to get a permit in Coos Bay, and
But we used to have SDCs. They were, I believe, stopped to spur development. And can you explain why that is much more difficult to reinstate? Nicole?
So my understanding, and I wasn't here, so I need to do a little bit of research when we did that, but all you've done is put a moratorium on. We wouldn't be establishing a new plan. When you establish a new plan, you actually have to go out and say, here's our infrastructure, and how should those fees be applied to improvements. Usually SDCs can only be used to add to the size of your infrastructure. It can't be just to do repairs and maintenance. It's got to be adding capacity. So there's parameters in there in your plan, right? So we have a plan in all the various areas we used to charge SDCs. We just said we're not doing it right now because we believe it will spur development. So while there are some impediments to setting one up, we've got it set up. We just said, hey, we don't want to do those anymore because we think it will help encourage development.
So my understanding is, yes, we did stop them or put a moratorium on whatever was done. But my understanding also is that we really would have to do a new plan. Our plan that's existing is not going to comply. So therefore, we would have to start basically from scratch. The other thing I can tell you that other communities, Jacob, for instance, I'll just use Timber Cove, they're waiving SDCs just to get these developments going because it's a huge cost to them. And so other communities are saying, because there's this big push for these housing developments and they're trying to find ways, I think the state even is asking for us, communities to waive that to get grant money and whatever. So I don't know if we should go down that
No,
road.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
bring
no,
on
I know. I'm just
SDCs.
explaining to
I did
Jacob,
not,
right?
yeah.
I think going down that road, I think that, I'm not sure if 85 or 80% on some of these. I think, here's my take. I think, first of all, on the review, I think we can do 171 if you compare it to everyone else. And I think at the type 1, we could do, that full 463. Now, on the others, I'm not sure if we just want to implement the full amount. Maybe we want to do a percentage increase.
How about a road to recovery?
Yeah.
A stepped approach to where we
sure.
get to the cost of service.
Yeah.
The Water Board is going through a similar process where the cost of service that we are providing to specific user types is below, and it's being subsidized by other ones that are, paying more than their cost of service. So we're trying to get it closer to an even rate, and there's going to be some growing pains with that.
Carmen, how many years is the water board taking to adjust those fees?
7, 10.
Does that seem like a long
10.
time?
I thought it was 10.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, it was 10.
10, that's right. 10 years, and I think that's going to be a wise decision to do it over time. Basically, when I look at this table right here, I'm like, wow, we need to catch up like now. But maybe that's a little bit too ambitious. So maybe jumping it up. I would like to see a stepped approach for how we get to where we're getting to the cost of recovery. I don't think we can get to the point where we're only shooting for 80% of our cost recovery.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, because I just sat through the water board budget, and there was a really good plan, and it was really evenly distributed, amongst different user classes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the same thing, and that would make sense to me too.
Yeah, I think we can get 100% on some of these that, like I mentioned, because they're really comparable to other, like North Bend. But I think, jumping up the business license at that amount right away would be a big leap. So I would hope that maybe we can adjust that differently, and maybe I'm not familiar with the sewer, fee, so I can't address it. But anyway,
maybe even a 5-year step plan to
Well,
get to 100%.
But I think some you can do right away.
Yes, agreed.
And the others, I think you need to do a percentage.
I agree with the percentage. We just got a report on what's happening with the permits and licenses and things like that. We still need some help, I think, to push people into those modes of, let's do this. And I am just not a big fan of saying, well, we're way under this, so let's just double and triple it to get to 80, even 80%. Businesses plan, and development is a business for what they're going to do in the future. So I think we have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, no, the business license is annual, correct?
Correct.
So I think, that one we need to be, somewhat cautious. The general review, that's not annual, is it? All the
That's
rest?
per
application.
project, per application, yeah.
Right, so that they have to apply for. So those types, I think, they're not going to be that annual one that would be affecting someone on a regular basis.
On a
So
planned basis,
yeah, that could be handled a little bit differently, in my opinion. But anyway.
I like the idea of slowly going there, and we are asking our community to forego potential services by not recouping our costs. We are coming up with this money to do this work somewhere. It's when we're saying yes to these low cost recovery fees, we're saying no to other things that I think should be doing. So Councilor Kilmer, I totally agree. I don't want to stress people out too much in terms of their planning, and we need to help people through what I believe is already a trajectory towards a bit of a tough economic time. That being said, we have to do our due diligence to provide services for our community, and it is going to be something that we can't subsidize forever. And I think we've fallen behind on this
Well,
without cost increase.
We have to remember too that when somebody puts money into a building or builds something or, takes something from dirt to we're adding to the coffers
Absolutely.
with that development too. So there is, encouragement to develop as well, or fix a building when we implement the hammers and all of those other things. So, yeah, we're moving in a direction, and we're hitting them from all directions as well.
Aren't these, do these go ahead, Jacob.
No, well, I just get a quick question for Chelsea. If we did in some form adopt option 4 for maybe, say, a type 3 application, how would that look to the person getting that receipt? Is it like itemized by the hours that the city employee took? What would that look like?
Yeah, it's not something that we do a lot of right now, so it's a good question. My guess would be we'd have a fee, and then you would know that there would be this rate for X, every hour thereafter, and we would be tracking our hours, and then through finance coming up with some kind of invoice that shows that, what those hours were put towards.
And we kind of have a model. It's totally a different idea, but we do have a model for that in our public records requests, right? We estimate when we get a request in, and it's not just we can just pop this back out to the requester. It's going to take some time to put it together. We give an estimate, and they pay that estimate, and we keep track of time, and then we right size that when we're done. And so it would kind of maybe make sense we're letting them know in advance what that might look like cost-wise. Maybe they even pay a portion towards that, a deposit, and then if there's more due, we keep them informed essentially.
So aren't some of these costs supposed to be self-supporting for the system, like our permitting, right? I mean, isn't that in line with that type of?
Yeah, so we didn't look at building permits because building is an enterprise fund. It is self-sustaining, and we did recently look at raising those fees. All of these fees are general fund dollars. Yeah.
So I think what we've been talking about, maybe I'm wrong, is this number 3, incremental fee adjustments, high cost, high volume permits. Is that what we're talking? Isn't that what we discussed? So isn't that the one that we want to move forward
like
with?
a stepped, I can look at what a stepped approach would look. I'm imagining, this is not my expertise, but I'm imagining it's kind of like water quality, trying to figure out how you're going to implement this cost.
Right.
So we can look at that and bring something back. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's some costs you can do like right away, move up in comparative with other cities. But Troy, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say what I don't know that we specifically addressed was the implementation of an annual fee increase tied to some sort of index. I just like the CPI just because it's publicly known and easy to address. I know it's more volatile than the municipal, but nobody knows what that means. And but I think we would kind of address that if we did an incremental fee adjustment cost. That would be built into it.
Yeah.
Well, it's the base. What I see is we're going to do a pretty big jump to claw back some of those percentages, and then eventually it will get down to a lower percentage annually.
Yes.
So maybe we do a 15 or a 20% increase for the next X amount of years to get us closer to that 100% of cost recovery. Because the highest percentage of cost recovery we have currently is 63%. The lowest is 24% cost recovery.
And that's, in my opinion, that's for the individuals who most could absorb, based on the example of that cost.
I think so. I mean, the cost didn't look that large for me. It's like the cost for a Type 3 on average is $2,356, which
that's more
is not
commercial,
insane.
industrial kind of.
Yes, and I could see that being, that's within the realm. It's not an individual necessarily, but I'd like to see a stepped approach.
Yeah, I think there's some you can go right away. Like again, I think you could do the general review type 1. You can go right to that 171, 463. I don't think there's a problem. I mean, look at the county. They're They're much higher.
I would not have guessed that, but
I
yeah,
know.
you're
But
right.
I guess I don't think we should be where the county is in our situation. But I think that we can, and then the building permits, I would be cautious on how much we go up at a time, stuff like that.
So just listening, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chelsea, but I might be confused if I was her,
Where are you
whether we were
confused?
going to do, whether we were just going to do a stepped increase across the board, or we were going to take 2 or 3 of them, make them 100%, and then step the rest. Is that
Sounds
what
like
I'm
we're
hearing?
cherry picking. And
I'm
just-
hearing both of those things, yes.
Right. I would be fine with taking 2 or 3 of the smaller ones, making them 100%, and then stepping the larger ones.
Yeah,
Is
I think that's correct.
reasonable to everybody
Yeah,
else?
but I
With
think
the
we-
goal being to reach 100% on all of them within
Well,
some
over
X
time.
amount of years?
Yeah, I don't think you can get there immediately, but I think whatever seems fair, I don't know, 5 years or whatever it may be. I don't know.
Yeah, how long do we want to subsidize it?
Yeah.
I'd like to see it come back. And also, I'm not a fan of municipal cost index either.
So it's clear, right, how you're going to do this for us?
I'm going to bring back some more information.
Good.
Yes.
Sounds great.
I think I'd like to see some samples
Yeah.
of what it would be.
Just to have an idea of what we think it's going to look like and
Yeah.
what it will take. Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right, city manager's report.
Just 3 things, and one we kind of already brought up, but I just want to call attention to Leah Anderson from HUD here, and just like kind of this reminder, right? We reached out to them 2 years ago under their Distressed Community Technical Assistance Grant. Our first kind of look was like, hey, can you help us with some financial projections? That was what we were kind of like, we need to know what the future looks like. And they did this whole wraparound, and what we've got from that is obviously that financial projection piece. They've helped us develop a grant program, so a part of how we've grown so robust is because of their work there. They're working with us in our how do we get to yes, those SOPs. We had a whole management training when we had new leaders kind of in these core positions. So it's just a huge shout out to get these communities kind of who they're just struggling and getting them back on board, and we understand they're going to be working with Gold Beach, so we have an opportunity to maybe tag in some additional site visits. So just, thank you. It's a great program, and really appreciate what it's done for our group here. So
were you here a couple years ago? No, there's a different team?
So
group?
she's actually with HUD, and
Right.
we've had Enterprise. So that's who HUD consults with. They have a group of
All right.
folks, and Enterprise is the one who is connected to us.
Okay.
So they're the ones who've been here. It just happens that the whole team was here today to do some follow-up work on several things, and Leah was able to join them in that. So
Great.
hopefully she sees live how beneficial this has been to keep that program kind of going. Just reminder that groundbreaking is tomorrow for Inglewood at 4. We hope to be kind of short and sweet. We'll have a couple words, get to see the site, and be done. Maybe 30 minutes. And then since we're just kind of talking about housing and development in general, have a check-in on Thursday with Northwest Housing Alternatives. Remember, they were folks who were connected to Inglewood. They are also connected to the Gloria Day Lutheran Project for senior housing up there. They're coming to town on Thursday and asked to reach out and kind of give us an update. So doing that, and I'll report back to you guys on that. Great. That's what I have.
That's it. All right, council comments. Jacob? Are you muted?
There we go. Mute.
All right.
Just one little one to say that the Empire District Block Party is going to be on August 4th from 5 to 7. So if you're in the area and want to come by, it's going to be a fun time, I think.
That's it?
That's it. That's all I got.
All right. Okay. All right. Stephanie?
I don't have anything.
Troy?
No comments for me tonight.
All right. Carmen?
Well, I have at least one comment. I feel like lately I've been really pushing heavily for fees and recouping costs, and it feels a little weird to be in that seat to where I'm asking for fee recovery, cost recovery for this community, and I just I think you've probably seen, I do feel fairly strongly about this. It's the sustainability of this community and the ability to do the job that we are tasked with, and going through budgets and seeing tough lines here and there is just, it doesn't feel like we are doing our community a service if we're not doing what we can to make sure that we're protecting our citizens from costs incurred by individuals or companies or anybody who decides to kind of leave something derelict on our plate. And so while I seem to be pushing heavily, I'm doing so kind of with a heavy heart to do that, but I also hope that it comes across that it's for the entire betterment of this community. But that's just where my mind frame is currently. So I really do hope that we can find a way to encourage and be positive in our supportive role as an urban renewal agency for helping businesses and building owners find ways to improve their assets and improve our community and be a part of this community in a larger way. And we would love to help support. And you know, the lack of SDCs is another one of those things. We're really hoping to invite people to develop. And it's not, I think we're focusing on fees right now, but it's nice to focus every once in a while on what we are doing to hopefully support development and building. And I think that many of my fellow councilors are doing a better job of focusing on the assets that we can provide. And I appreciate that there are other voices in this at this dais that are helping to give the message that we're open for business. We want to see development. We want things to move forward. And that's all I have for the moment.
All right, thanks, Carmen. So, you know, I'm proud that we have this interaction we do with the council and staff. I think it's important. And because of it, we bring up different suggestions and ideas, and I think that's what we're sitting here for to do. And I'm proud of that. They're happy that the staff is doing what they're doing, like Chelsea and Jennifer, trying to improve things. He's working with HUD and these different agencies to try to find better ways to serve the public and the businesses. We are pro-development. We always are going in that way in economic development, and it's just that we all want to get there, maybe a little bit differently, but we all want to get there. So anyway, I'm pleased with it. We all have done a good job in the last couple council meetings. I don't know. I'd have to maybe go back and some councilors go back and look and see how we've acted and done. But I'm afraid to do that, so I won't. But I think we've done a good job overall. Anyway, I'll end my comments with that because we do have an urban agency meeting, speaking of urban renewal. Anyway, so I'll adjourn the council meeting and we'll reconvene with the urban renewal, and Stephanie will handle that. Thank you, everyone.
We need just a couple minutes, like 2 minutes.
We'll take a couple minutes, not long, so don't go too far, so that she can get that set up, so Christine can get that set up, and then we'll be back.